The times they are changing, slowly but surely at a steady pace. The times rearranging, we will get through the struggles we face. Every day from sunrise to dusk, we work, we must. We each have our roles to play to keep things in order. But we have time to sing the song of life, find joy in everything I must. In 1836, keep myself feeling alive. One of the many goals of my project was to learn what it would be like to be a child in the 19th century. One of the many ways that I did this was to go to museums that would show what it was actually like to be in the 19th century instead of just looking at a piece of it. These included the Wiley House, a house made into a museum that someone had actually lived in during the 19th century, and the Monroe County History Center, where I got to study in an old-fashioned schoolhouse setting. We are but minutes, little things, each one furnished with 60 wings, on which we fly on our unseen track, and not a minute ever comes back. My reenactments included dressing like a child in the 19th century, mending my petticoat, making a broom, doing my chores, learning to make soup, and playing games. I also studied in an old-fashioned schoolhouse setting and walked 2 miles to buy soap in town. I learned that being in the 19th century was hard work every day, mostly in the early 19th century, but even in the later 19th century, it was more work than life today. We really take comfort for granted. At first, I loved the novelty of it all, but at the end of 4 days, I began to see how it could feel dull and tiring. Here is a bit of what I wrote in my journal while living out the time period. Mending was so slow. I sewed over 1 foot of a seam, and I can now understand why they say a stitch in time saves 9. I loved how simple life was, though it was also a lot of hard work. I now notice how much people litter, how much media there is, and how much people ignore or don't notice interesting things. Since life was slow, I imagined I was doing something else, and it made it more interesting. Barely. Walking 2 miles into town to get soap, luckily downtown was 2 miles away, was even slower. It was cold and it started to snow, and all I had was a cloak. Once I was there, I made an exception and asked to be driven back. I also went to Conner Prairie, an interactive historical park, which was a unique and in-depth experience. Instead of being at home or in my town where I would see modern things, I got to experience what it was actually like instead of just having different pieces of it. At Conner Prairie, they treated me like I was a girl in that time period. They used old-fashioned words and talked about things they would have experienced that were normal to them but not us. One place I visited was the store. The storekeeper, Mrs. Whitaker, was looking for an assistant to sweep the store in exchange for a soapstone for my slate.
And waiting on these stuff, Campbell, sure.
It would be my pleasure.
Yeah, that's from Mr. Saunders down. It's not.
We've come all the way from a small town called Bloomington.
Oh my! Now that I know that. That's farther south, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
All right. How big a town is that getting to be these days?
No, it's still pretty small. We have to walk like 2 miles to get soap, but
Oh my!
I like it.
All right. Well, one of the things I'd like to see this little town have is paved streets. Did you look out
We've
there?
been able to share all of the duties, the cooking, and, well, I think of my 2 nieces and nephews almost as though they were my own children.
When we went into Conner Prairie, the people at the front desk said that I needed to wear a costumed visitor sticker so no one would think I was a reenactor and try to ask me questions. However, some people did. I noticed that many of the things they needed they made themselves, like clothing, candlesticks, barrels, pottery, food, but some things were brought from faraway places that we today wouldn't think we're so far away because we go in faster moving vehicles. In conclusion, the 19th century was a time of sickness, injustice, and hard work without a choice, but also a time of joy because just like now, people can find a way to have joy in the darkness of life. There was more hardship then, and even their quote-unquote modern conveniences took a lot of hard work to use. If you lived in the 19th century and somehow invented a time machine and went forward in time to now, it would seem like a whole different planet. The times, they are changing, slowly but surely at a steady pace. The times rearranging, we will get through the struggles we face. Every day from sunrise to dusk, we work, we must. We each have our roles to play to keep things in order. But we have time to sing the song of life, find joy